Alright guys, we got a big one for you guys today. This is a mega Snows Rogue Phase 6 Frost Resist guide. It's a huge long guide that's taken me, what, 2 days now to make this. I've been staring at this guide website page for 2 days now to compile all this information. So we've got everything from what you need for your Frost Resist gear for late game, what you need to prep right now in Phase 5 to get ready for Phase 6, what mats you need to get prepared for your crafted set, what mats you need to prepare for your enchants. So for people that don't know, the enchants for Frost Resist are a whole world of their own. There's a huge quest line, kind of like Earthstrike, you know, the resource task that everyone just did in Silithus for Phase 5. Kind of like that, we have a whole bunch of tasks that we have to do if you want to do the enchants really quickly. And I covered the mats, the quest lines, everything you need for that as well. So this is a mega guide. It's kind of like 2 or 3 guides in one. So yeah, let's get into this guide. And if you want to help support the channel, you can click that subscribe button in one of these corners. Somewhere there's a subscribe button below. It says subscribe. You can click it or not. Apparently YouTube's going to recommend these videos to you anyway, but I appreciate it if you click the subscribe button. And speaking of supporting the channel, if you want to help support any of this content, we have our brand new merch line: white on white, black on black, sword or dagger rogue hoodies. Super stealthy, super clean. I like it. I made merch that I will wear myself, and I am wearing it myself. So yeah, if you like any of that, buying any of that merch helps support what I do here with all the free content that I do create. So yeah, let's get into the guide. Okay, so let's get into Snows Rogue Frost Resist guide for Phase 6. So firstly, why do you need Frost Resist in Phase 6? Well, because of this dragon right here. So you need Frost Resist because of the Sapphiron fight. Basically in Nax, this guy does a whole bunch of painful frost attacks. So he does 600 damage AoE every 2 seconds as an aura. He does a 3 to 4k damage blizzard AoE that moves around the room. He does ice bolts that do damage as well. Basically, it just does a whole bunch of frost damage. So frost resistance is really, really good for this fight. Okay, now how much frost resist do you actually need? Now the ideal would be somewhere in 200 to 240 unbuffed frost resist range, because that would put you at about almost 315 frost resist cap. If you hit 240 frost resist unbuffed, you're at around 315, which is the resist cap, once you include some basic buffs. So roughly in that area you want to aim for, but whether people will be able to reach that is going to depend on the personal preferences and how the raid comms are set up, as we're going to go through now. So just to keep in mind that there is a whole bunch of frost resist buffs that you will get as well. So you can see here you get 60 frost resist from Pally, Aura, or Shaman Totem. And just so you know, this does not stack with Mark of the Wild or magic resistance potions. So if for some reason you don't have a Paladin or Shaman, you would use a magic resistance potion, which does 50 frost resist instead of 60. Then you also have Juju Chills, which is another 15 frost resist, which stacks with everything. And then we also have this, which a lot of people might not know about, which is 10 frost resist from the Crystal Basilisk Spine. So these are mob drop in STV, but they only last for 1 minute and they have a 2-minute cooldown. So how useful these are is going to be questionable, but I assume for the first few clears, people might bring these anyway because they're super easy to farm, and why not? Now, if you were big brain, you might have gotten the Blood Kelp Elixir of Resistance when you were doing your Dark Mental quests as a rogue. So one of the quests gave you an option to pick between a whole bunch of different potions. So one of the options was this Blood Kelp Elixir of Resistance, which gives you 15 frost resists. It does stack with everything, so it is, if you have it, great. If not, it's not a big deal still. But still, if you have it, use it, why not? Especially for your progression raids, it's going to come in handy there. And it does stack. From what we've been able to tell, it seems to be able to stack with everything else. Okay, now, the problem here is if you are going for, say, 230 to 240 frost resist so that you can try to hit resist cap, a lot of that is going to be made a lot easier with the crafted set. But, and here's the big but, is that you won't be getting frozen rune pieces from Naxxramus until after you've cleared Naxxramus a bunch, because you don't start on a day 1 with the frozen rune pieces, which are one of the key requirements here. So these frozen rune pieces, you need these in order to craft the crafted set, and you don't have any for the first clear. So it's going to take a whole bunch of these before you guys can get them, and it may seem really easy to get frost resist, but once you take out all the crafted gear, a lot of the best pieces disappear. So I would not be surprised at all if a lot of people don't get to that really high frost resist cap on your first clear, because a lot of the best pieces just aren't really available to people, and a lot of the other pieces just aren't really that good. Now, one thing I have heard when talking to a bunch of other rogues as well is that some people are going to test out maybe using the Dark Moon card Heroism Trinket, which procs a heal at a fairly high proc rate. So this can also offset the frost damage that you're taking if you're also proccing heals at the same time. Now, how effective this is going to be is we're going to have to wait and see and how this turns out. But yeah, this is something that some people are planning on testing out as well, including myself. So we will see how effective that is. But nevertheless, it's going to be pretty standard for people to double stack greater frost protection potions and also use ice deflectors. So ice deflectors are these. These are made by engineers. They absorb 600 frost damage. They last for a minute. It's not a huge amount of frost damage, but it does stack with everything, so it's kind of why not use them. So between the 2 greater frost protection potions and the ice deflectors as well, it's going to give you a little bit more survivability on this Sapphiron fight. Okay, now let's talk about the frost resist gear, because this is where things get a little bit interesting, because this is your mixed bis set. So it'd be amazing if you could get this, but whether you're going to be able to get this set is questionable. Because if you look at all of this, this is all polar helmets, crafted pieces of gear. All of these look really, really great, and they give massive amounts of frost resist. So for example, look at these polar leggings here. These give 40 frost resist just by itself. A lot of these polar pieces give massive amounts of frost resist. And keep in mind again, if you hit 240 frost resist, you're already hitting the frost resist cap, because 240 plus the 60 from your totem and then another 15 from your juju, that's already 75 extra frost resist right there. So yeah, just be aware that you're probably not going to need all of these pieces. You're just going to kind of mix and match and see how you go with these pieces. So that's why you can see here I said you probably, if you're going into this bis set, you probably don't need these phasing boots. You probably won't be using the frostbite girdle anymore. You probably won't be trying to get a ranged weapon with 6 frost resist. It just doesn't make sense as you transition to this set of gear. But again, this says mid to late, because you don't have the mats to make this. So this is a great set. It has a lot of great pieces, but you can't make all of this on day one. You don't have the mats which drop in Naxxramus to actually make all this stuff. So this is what you'll be aiming for down the line, but you won't be able to make like 90% of everything you see here. Okay, so now this, on the other hand, is option 2. So this is more realistic. This is what you actually have access to right now without getting into the crafted phase 6 gear that you won't be able to create for a whole bunch of raids, because the frozen runes are gonna block you off from making any of that stuff. So this is all stuff that's available right now. So you can see I listed a whole bunch of different options here. Now, the thing I want you to keep in mind when you're looking at this though is that you're not probably gonna wear all of this necessarily. Some of these slots, for example, in the hand slot, there's Frost Saber gloves and Bright Moon Bright Cloth gloves. So this is either 13 frost resist or 12 frost resist. This is no stats really. Outside of just the frost resist, this is just gloves with no other stats. So for the Sapphiron fight, you have to keep in mind that you're still trying to kill Sapphiron. So a lot of people aren't going to be necessarily wanting to just swap out and lose all their DPS for more frost resist here. They're gonna have to try to be a bit selective. Depending on how fast your guild can kill Sapphiron, people are gonna have to make the choice of, do I want to basically sacrifice a huge amount of DPS for a little bit more frost resist? And I think what we might see a lot is a lot of people stacking greater frost protection potions, ice deflectors, and then just trying to make intelligent choices where they can pick up frost resist without losing completely all their DPS stats, right? So this is just something I would keep in mind, is that be careful about using too many just 0 stat items that just give frost resist, like these legs here, these gloves here. Just be careful about thinking about using too much of this, because you do need DPS stats for Sapphiron still. You still want to be doing damage to kill Sapphiron. Okay, so really quickly, let's just go over which are the really good pieces here. So Bloodfang Hood is a no-brainer. That's really, really great. You get attack stats and you get frost resist as well. Another fairly solid one is the Icy Tomb Spiders, but these are super rare. I don't know how many people will actually be able to get these. They're kind of a pain in the butt to get these to drop, and I have looked into auction house. These are going for quite a pretty penny right now. Okay, so moving down, we have the Stormpike Soldier's Cloak, and this is a typo. This should say 5 Frost Resist. I'll get this fixed up in the image. But yeah, so this is actually a pretty solid pickup. If you want DPS stats and Frost Resist, you can get the Stormpike Soldier's Cloak. That's an Elturek Valley faction reward. So maybe some of the newer rogues might not have the faction, but most of the rogues that have been playing since the start should already have the faction to grab a Stormpike Soldier's Cloak. Now below, they've got the Thick Silithid Chest Guard is another option you can pick, which is, it doesn't have a lot of Frost Resist, it's only got 5, but it's got at least decent, half-decent attack stats on it, so it's not horrible as well. But you can see here, there's not a whole lot of options, unfortunately, for your pre-Phase 6 prep Frost Resist gear that actually has DPS stats on it. Oh, and another good piece here is the waist. So the Frostbite Girdle, this is a very good piece. It's got decent attack stats and it's got 10 Frost Resist as well. And then if you don't have that, there's also just Stormpike Leather Girdle, which also has attack stats, but a little bit less Frost Resist. So those are really the stat items that let you keep a bunch of attack stats and then give you some Frost Resist as well. So you can see here, there's really not a huge amount of Frost Resist options available to rogues that also let you keep attack stats, which is kind of the dilemma I think a lot of rogues are going to have with preparing their Phase 6 Frost Resist gear. Because once you take away all of that crafted gear, it's just left with all of this, which is a whole bunch of gear which doesn't have a whole lot of attack stats. So really, rogues, you're going to be presented with the choice here of dropping a whole bunch of your attack stats and DPS stats in exchange for getting to that really high Frost Resist cap, which maybe you might choose to do for a progression raid. If you're not in a speed clearing guild, your guild's just going to clear, you're going to go for safety, then okay, you pick up a lot of this Frost Resist for safety and try to get that to that 200 plus unbuffed mark, and hopefully you can pick up enough of these pieces. But just keep in mind that a lot of these pieces, you're going to throw them out once you get crafted gear, because as you can see, if we go up here, the crafted gear is a million miles better. There's so many really good options. Now, what I will say, if you don't already have your Frost Resist rings, I would try to get at least one Frost Resist ring. So the green World Drop Frost Resist rings in the auction house are still fairly cheap. I haven't seen crazy inflation on them yet, but you can bet that these are probably going to go crazy inflation, just like the Nature Resist rings did just before Phase 5 started. So you should probably pick up these Frost Resist rings now, or at least one Frost Resist ring now before the prices go kind of nuts. Personally, I picked up a 20 Frost Resist ring and a 19 Frost Resist ring. I might not even use both, but it's just nice to have them there. I can always resell them if I don't end up using both Frost Resist rings. And down here you can see for the trinkets, you have the engineering reflectors are pretty good if you just want Frost Resist. And an interesting one we will talk about is the Stormpike Insignia. So this has 10 Frost Resist and it has health regen as well. So it might actually be not bad because health regen helps offset a little bit of the damage, and your over the entire course of the fight, it might heal you a little bit of extra HP there. So it might be an interesting option. The Stormpike AV Insignia that you get for being exalted might be an interesting option there. Now, as I mentioned, some people are going to be trying out this, which is the Dark Moon Card Heroism Trinket, where they're going to try to proc heals and then see if that heals offsets just not having any Frost Resist in that trinket slot. Instead, they're just going to aim to heal through healing procs using that trinket. So yeah, this is options again, kind of slim pickings for gear that actually lets you keep your DPS stats, but that's just kind of how it goes with the pre-Phase 6 prep gear that you can get. Now let's talk about the crafted gear a little bit more. So this crafted gear, so if we go back up here, you can see this polar crafted gear, this glacial cloak, this Ramaladni's Icy Grasp with the 25 Frost Resist. All of this stuff is really amazing. So you actually end up with 179 Frost Resist just if you get all of this crafted gear, or crafted / quested turn-in gear. So if you get all of this Phase 6 gear that's going to be available from day 1, but obviously you won't have the mats to make all of this, but once you get all this, you actually get 179 Frost Resist just from the quested and crafted Frost Resist gear. That's not including enchants. So yeah, that's what I mean by saying once you get your crafted Frost Resist gear, you probably just throw out a lot of this other stuff that we just went through. You're not going to use a lot of this stuff anymore. But yeah, so let's go over this now. You have a whole bunch of polar gear. Just be aware that the frozen rune cost on this is pretty high on some of this stuff. 7 frozen runes. Your guild might not give you 7 frozen runes on for a little while to make 1 piece of frost resist gear. And yeah, so there's frozen rune cost. Now the legs are actually pretty good value. So the legs here are 40 frost resist and 2 frozen runes, which is the lowest out of all the polar options. Now you do need to be revered with Argent Dawn to do this quest turn-in, so just be aware you need revered faction of Argent Dawn. Most rogues who did Dark Mantle should probably already have revered or almost revered, because you guys probably farmed a lot of Stratholme and Skulloments to get your pieces. But yeah, you want revered faction with Argent Dawn to be able to do this leg quest. But yeah, these legs are the most efficient out of the polar options because it only costs you 2 frozen runes. Now, besides the rest of this polar gear, so you can see there's even more polar gear with varying amounts of stuff that you need. So you can see here, just be aware you need a lot of cured rugged hides. So if we go down here to the bottom, you can see this is the total mats for everything. If you want a full set of everything here, all the polar gear, this amazing finger. By the way, this finger is 1 frozen rune. I think a lot of guilds are going to give this to the raiders first because it only costs 1 frozen rune each. So it's an amazing piece of value. Everyone can get a little bit of frost resist. And the only real cost is the 1 Arcanite bar, which isn't crazy. For 1 piece of gear, most people should be fine to afford 1 Arcanite bar. So yeah, here are the total costs of everything. So you can see here we've got 24 frozen runes, 40 enchanted leathers, 10 essence of waters, 9 cured rugged hides, 16 ironweb spider silks, 3 blue sapphires, 4 bolts of runecloth, 1 arcanite bar, and 30 gold. So you can see the main cost of this is this stuff here at the top. So you need the frozen runes, 24 frozen runes, which are, again, they're going to be a pain in the butt to get early on, because to get a frozen rune, you basically need to get a trash drop off the mobs called a word of thawing or something along those lines. And those thawing things will allow you to loot the frozen runes inside Naxxramus. So it's kind of like the keys that drop in AQ right now. You need those off the trash mobs to get the frozen runes, which is going to make it kind of a pain in the butt. So your guild isn't going to have 24 frozen runes for everyone for a little bit. And of course, I would highly recommend all rogues already be preparing cured rugged hides. You need 9 of them. These things have been skyrocketing in price, so you should probably get on that and start preparing that. Now let's go over the general frost resist gear. So I do have a list here of all just general pieces here. So you saw in my picture up here, I did list all the main options here. So here you can see I listed all the popular options that you can pick here for your prep frost resist, but I go into a little bit more detail down here so you can have a look at all this stuff. So yeah, it's not every single piece of gear that gives frost resist, but it's the ones that make sense. So you can see some of these are actually drop pieces. The polar helmet is actually a drop in Nax, which is going to be a really nice pickup if you can pick it up. But yeah, I just listed all the various options here. See, so Icy Tomb Spalders. You guys know me, I like to sort everything out nicely into these easy to use tabs. So yeah, go nuts. If you want to have a look at the frost resist gear in more detail, you can use these tabs to find whatever you want here. Okay. Now, frost resist enchants. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. Okay, so for the frost resist enchants, there's 3 frost resist enchants that you can get. So there's the ice guards. So the ice guards give 10 frost resist to head and legs. So you're gonna have to get 2 of them to get your resist gear if you want it there. Now there is also the shoulders for 5 frost resist, so you can get the frost mantle or the chromatic mantle of the dawn. You need Argent Dawn revered reputation though, right? So you need Argent Dawn revered reputation to get this, because that's the requirements in order to get these frost resist to shoulders, or the chromatic mantle of the dawn, which is 5 resist to everything. Now, I don't know how many people will actually go for this, because you're giving up 30 attack power for 5 frost resist. Depending on how fast your guild kills and how safe you're going with the frost resist, your guild might you might not even want to get these, because it's a big trade-off. Same with the legs actually, and on some level it's 10 frost resist. You're giving up the ZG enchants on your gear as well. So with all of these enchants, you're gonna have to make a choice for these first 2 in particular. You're gonna have to make a choice. So do you want to keep your DPS stats, or are you gonna go for frost resist, extra frost resist? And especially once we get into the later stage of the game. So again, like once we get into the later stage of the game with this set here, you're not going to need a whole lot of extra frost resist. Look at how much frost resist is on all this stuff. As you pick up the crafted gear and the really good drop pieces here, like the polar helm, you maybe might not even want to frost resist enchant them anymore because you have so much frost resist from all this gear. Okay, and of course we have the 5 resist to back from the greater resistance enchant. This is not a bad one because most rogues are probably only using like agility to back, which isn't a big deal anyway, so most people will probably put this on their frost resist cloak. Okay, so now I said this was a little bit tricky because these Ice Guard enchants here, if you want these Ice Guard enchants, they're a little bit complicated on how you get these. So to get these Ice Guard enchants, you need 10 of these Insignia of the Crusade and 30 gold. And since if you're going for 2, you basically need 20 Insignias of the Crusade. And it's kind of a pain in the butt, not gonna lie, it's kind of a pain in the butt when I was looking at this. So to get these Insignias of the Crusade, you're basically gonna have to go to Light's Hope's Chapel and do a whole bunch of task quests. And you need Friendly Reputation to even start these. So hopefully you have Friendly Reputation with the Argent Dawn. Now there's 2 sets of tasks you can get. So one is kill and gather task. These are really straightforward. It's basically just go kill X mob and loot 30 of this item. It is basically how these quests work. So these are very straightforward. There's no really requirements. It's just literally just a gather quest asking you to go do this. And to give you an Insignia of the Crusade, and you can repeat these as much as you want. But option 2 is where it gets kind of funky, is there's trade skill and crafting tasks. So if you don't want to do the kill task over and over and over again to get 20 insignias, you can actually do these turn-in trade skill tasks, which are a little bit easier to do, but are more expensive and more costly. So to get the trade skill task, you need 1 Argent Dawn Valor token. So you remember these Argent Dawn Valor tokens that some of you guys may have in your bank, or some of you guys may have been getting when you were leveling in Stratholme, Scholomance, when you were just killing undead in EPL. You need 1 of these tokens to get the quest. So you have to turn in a token and it will give you a randomized trade skill task. So this is a lot like, if you remember Earthstrike, for those of you guys who did Earthstrike in the Silithus quest where you went back and forth and you got a random task and then you handed in the items based on a random task. This is kind of like that, where you have to hand in this Argent Dawn Valor token and you'll be getting 1 of these random tasks. And the task will tell you to make something and bring it in, right? So this one, it asks you for 30 lightning eels, for example. They might ask you for 20 major mana potions. They might ask you for runecloth bags. It's kind of just random. It's a whole bunch of these. Now, looking through these tasks, some of these really you do not want to do. For example, you would not be doing Goblin Sapper Charges, 20 Goblin Sapper Charges. That's, you guys know Sapper Charges are 5 gold each a piece, so this one makes no sense to do. So much like the Earthstrike quests, there's some of these that are better to do, some that aren't. I saw one that was just thorium tubes, which is pretty cheap. There's some like this one here for the runecloth stuff, rugged armor kits. This one's only 125 rugged leather. This might make more sense to do. So just like the Earthstrike quest, you're going to want to go through this list. And I have put all of the tasks here with the mats required for it as well. So you can scroll through, have a look. If you want to do these tasks or you want to have them prepped ahead of phase 6, you can prep all these items. And I would recommend, obviously, if you are doing trade skill tasks and your goal is to get 20 of them to get the 2 frost resist enchants, you prepare these items for the good quests that you want to do early. All right, so any of these quests like the thorium tubes, which is one. So one of the quests is asking you to make some thorium tubes, which is pretty cheap to do. You want to prepare just like the Earthstrike tasks for the resource tasks, where you prepare the good ones and then maybe you just turn in valor tokens until you get the one that you want. Is how it's probably going to work. So just keep in mind you do need a whole bunch of these Argent Dawn Valor tokens if you want to do the trade skill slash crafting tasks. And then you need to prep a whole bunch of this stuff, because for sure this stuff is going to inflate a little bit come phase 6 for everyone turning in these items. So yeah, so this is why it's a little bit tricky. Prep your stuff, guys. If you want to get these Ice Guard enchants, and you're not just going to go do the kill tasks over and over and over again. So you can see these kill tasks here, like Get 30 savage fronds from Trents and Lashes in Felwood and Guro. Damal, for example. These are just kill tasks, fairly straightforward. But if you don't want to do these over and over, and you just want to do these insignia turn-ins for the crafting things, prep your items. Prep your items for sure, because there's going to be some inflation there for these items. Okay guys, so I hope this guide answers all your Rogue Frost Resist guide questions. Again, the link for this guide is in the description below. You can find it on my Classic ROGUECRAFT website, and I will put the link in the description for you. So this should all be pretty straightforward for you to get. So even the crafted gear here, I put all the individual crafting mats that you need and everything you need. So again, if you want to prep your crafting gear, this is what you need to get as well. On top of any crafting task mats that you want to prepare, you need to prepare all of this for your phase 6 crafted resist gear as well. Now again, this stuff you don't need the faction for, except for the legs. The legs you need revered faction if you want to do the quest turn in for these. But the rest of these crafted items, you can get someone else to have the faction for it. So for example, for the polar gloves, you can get them from someone who's got revered Argent Dawn reputation, and then they get taught by the NPC inside Naxxramus, and they can craft it for you. So you don't actually need the reputation for that, but for the legs in particular, you do need the reputation. So I would highly recommend that you prep your Argent Dawn faction to revered if you want to get the polar leggings. Alright, so I hope this guide helped you out. Again, link in the description below for you to check all this stuff out. It's all nicely sorted out for you guys, as always. Alright, so if you found this useful, feel free to give it a like. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you have any questions or you want to catch this type of content earlier, ahead of time, I do stream on twitch.tv/snowme every day. Come check us out. And I hope you guys have a good day. I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.